The Capitol chamber buzzed with a quiet intensity. C-SPAN cameras panned slowly over the scene, capturing the poised tension that had built over the last hour. Representative Mike Johnson adjusted his tie and tapped the microphone twice, signaling the beginning of his closing remarks during the televised committee hearing on economic reform and social policy. Across from him, Representative Jasmine Crockett sat motionless, her eyes steady. He spoke with conviction about fiscal responsibility, government overreach, and what he claimed were unsustainable entitlement programs draining taxpayer dollars. His voice climbed steadily, confident and assertive, painting a picture of urgency and warning. Cameras caught nods from his side of the aisle. His supporters seemed assured. But Jasmine Crockett didn't flinch when the moderator yielded the floor to her. She stood slowly and removed her glasses with a grace that carried weight. Her voice was low at first, deliberate and clear, as she began to dismantle Johnson's argument point by point. Representative Johnson, she started. You just cited numbers from a 2019 pre-pandemic estimate, ignoring the reality that families today are still recovering from a crisis that your party largely dismissed until it spiraled beyond control. Asterisk, she took a breath and walked forward, leaving the podium behind, speaking not to the cameras, but to the people watching. You want to talk about entitlements? Let's talk about how billion-dollar corporations received record tax breaks while school teachers and nurses lined up at food banks. The room fell silent. Then she pulled out a binder thick, color-tabbed, and brimming with data. Page 114, Section 3, she said, turning it toward the camera. According to the Congressional Budget Office, the largest line items in discretionary spending aren't social safety nets but defense contracts. Yet you've never once suggested trimming those. On the other, Johnson's face strained, blinking rapidly, jaw clenched, eyes darting downward. The moment went viral before the segment even ended. You want the public to believe that struggling Americans are to blame for budget shortfalls, she continued. But in truth, it's the policies you defend that keep the wealth gap widening and the working class suffocating. A staffer behind Johnson reached for a water bottle. He looked like he needed it. Asterisk, Crockett's voice didn't rise, but it pulsed with energy. The people watching this aren't statistics. They're single parents, veterans, grocery workers, students drowning in debt, and they deserve more than recycled rhetoric and cherry-picked figures. Asterisk, by the time she concluded the hearing, room was charged with silent awe. Johnson managed a thin, uneasy smile as the camera zoomed in on him. But his face said it all. His confidence had cracked. His argument unraveled on national TV, and Crockett had taken the spotlight without ever raising her voice. Asterisk, Part 2, approx 700 words. After the hearing, the internet erupted. Clips of Jasmine Crockett's takedown dominated social media within minutes. Hashtags like hashtag Crockett crushed it and hashtag Mike melted trended across platforms. News anchors couldn't resist replaying the split-screen moment. Crockett's cool composure contrasted with Johnson's increasingly uncomfortable expressions. Commentators called it a masterclass in controlled political combat. Asterisk, back in her office, Jasmine sat quietly, surrounded by her team. A young aide peeked around the door, holding up her phone. Ma'am, you're on fire. Even late night shows are picking it up. Asterisk, Jasmine gave a soft smile, but her focus stayed grounded. We didn't do it for the cameras, she said, sipping coffee. We did it for the people who needed someone to call the truth what it is. Asterisk, meanwhile, Johnson was uncharacteristically silent. His team scrambled to issue statements, claiming Crockett had misrepresented facts and engaged in political theater. But fact-checkers across media outlets confirmed otherwise. Her data was airtight, her delivery unshakable. Asterisk, journalists from both progressive and centrist platforms applauded the clarity she brought to the conversation. One editorial titled, Crockett's Moment of Truth, praised her for cutting through the fog of talking points and calling power to account. Asterisk, and that was the difference. Jasmine hadn't just argued, she'd spoken from lived reality, while Johnson had recited lines that now felt hollow. His supporters struggled to defend a performance that had been visibly appended by conviction, research, and something harder to define: authentic moral fire. Asterisk, 3 days later, Crockett was invited to appear on a nationally televised town hall. She brought with her constituents a teacher, a single mom, a nurse, and a student to speak about how policy affects their lives. She let them tell their stories. The room listened. Asterisk, when asked later if she had anticipated the response, Jasmine simply said, I expected resistance. As for Mike Johnson, his media appearances thinned. A few outlets attempted not just of one lawmaker being out-argued, but of a shift in how truth-telling could look on national television, sharp data-backed, but also deeply human. Jasmine Crockett had reminded everyone that passion didn't have to mean shouting, and strength didn't require condescension. It could look like calm clarity, surgical precision, and a refusal to let distortion slide unchallenged.